Imagine going to sleep and waking up to find that you've become a dragon. But not the kind of dragon you're imagining, the one that shakes mountains and levels kingdoms. No, you're literally a dragon that has just hatched from an egg, trapped inside a forest filled with monsters that want nothing more than to kill you. So, will you manage to become stronger than them in order to survive? Or will you end up as a meal for something even stronger? That's what we're about to find out today. The story begins with a boy waking up in complete darkness, confused and unable to understand where he is. At first, he couldn't see anything at all, but after a while, he noticed a faint light gradually appearing before him. The light grew brighter and brighter, and that's when he realized it was coming from something that looked like the inside of an eggshell. Part of the shell had been cracked, allowing him to see what was outside. Through that opening, he discovered that he was inside a forest. That only made him even more bewildered, especially when he realized that he couldn't move his body at all. Before he could think much more about it, a status screen suddenly appeared in front of him. When he read it, he was completely shocked because the screen clearly stated that he was nothing more than a dragon egg. That only made him even more confused. Then, the statistics screen opened fully, and the sacred voice announced that this screen displayed all of his current abilities in numerical form to make them easier to understand. Still confused, he tried speaking to the sacred voice and asked what exactly was happening. But the voice calmly replied that it couldn't explain anything right now because he was still only level 1. That answer irritated him even more. Out of sheer frustration, he shook his body slightly, causing himself to fall from the tree branch where he had been resting. He slammed into the ground and began rolling down a slope without any way to stop himself until he finally reached a river. There, he noticed that he could see his reflection in the water. When he looked closely, he was stunned to discover that he truly was a dragon egg. Seeing just how lost he was, the sacred voice decided to ease his confusion and give him a proper explanation of his situation. It told him that he really was a dragon egg and that in this world he was classified as an F-rank monster. If his shell were ever completely broken, he would die instantly, meaning that even the tiny opening he had created himself had been an enormous risk. The voice continued its explanation, telling him that although dragon eggs were considered among the weakest creatures in the food chain, they possessed the potential to transform into terrifying dragons over time. However, that only happens if they survive long enough. Since dragon eggs are a popular delicacy among monsters, and because eggs obviously don't have legs, their only means of movement is rolling. Even after hearing all of that, he still couldn't fully comprehend what was happening to him. He decided that staying in one place was extremely dangerous, so he began rolling away as fast as he possibly could. Unfortunately, that caused him to fall off a small cliff. Apparently, he'd been falling a lot lately, and because it had happened so many times, the system announced that his fall resistance had increased from level 1 to level 2. Even so, the fall reduced his health points, reminding him that he needed to be much more careful. When he realized that he was injured and exhausted, he decided to sleep for a while to recover. Just as he expected, the moment he woke up, his health had completely returned. At that point, he confirmed that sleep fully restored his health bar, and at the very least, that brought him a little comfort in this strange and dangerous world. Afterward, he continued rolling along while thinking to himself, wondering what would happen when he finally hatched. Would he someday become a gigantic dragon? Would he have to spend his entire life fighting just to survive? As he rolled along, lost in thought, he suddenly stopped when he noticed a giant insect not too far away. He immediately sensed danger, quickly hid behind a tree, and used the appraisal skill on it. The results revealed that the creature's name was Egg Eater, exactly as its name implied. The moment the insect noticed him, it charged straight at him and began pursuing him with obvious killing intent. He started rolling away at the fastest speed he could manage, but deep down, he knew he couldn't keep escaping like this forever. At this rate, the monster would eventually catch him. Realizing that, he understood that he had to find some way to gain the upper hand. The worm relentlessly chased him until they reached the edge of a cliff. At the exact moment it leaped forward to swallow him whole, he managed to dodge at the last possible second, using every ounce of strength he had. Then he slammed into it with all his might and succeeded in pushing it off the cliff. The monster fell down the slope and died instantly. That became the very first battle he had ever won in his life. The system immediately announced that he had gained 12 experience points and had now reached level 5. Because of that, all of his statistics were completely restored. On top of that, he had now fulfilled the requirements for evolution, and a choice appeared before him: evolve into a baby dragon or a small dragon. Since he had absolutely no idea what the real difference between the two choices was, the system stepped in and explained it to him. It told him that the small dragon was a dwarf breed of dragons. Although it was considered small compared to other dragons, its fully grown size would still be larger than a bear, and it was especially famous for its powerful fire breath attack. As for the baby dragon, the system explained that it wasn't particularly suited for combat due to its short claws and small teeth. However, in exchange, it possessed terrifying potential and could evolve into many different kinds of dragons in the future. Naturally, because of that, baby dragons were considered rare and valuable delicacies among both monsters and adventurers alike, meaning they were constantly hunted wherever they appeared. As expected, he chose the small dragon because it seemed like the safest option for survival. But the moment he made his decision, the sacred voice embraced him and told him not to place limits on himself. It explained that great things were expected of him and that he should always strive for the summit. Those words left him conflicted. He began wondering whether the sacred voice had said that simply because he had chosen the safe path instead of taking a risk. He remembered that the system had said baby dragons possessed enormous potential and could evolve into many different forms. From there, he began to suspect that perhaps the small dragon couldn't evolve very far, or maybe it eventually reached a limit and stopped altogether. After thinking it through carefully, he ultimately chose the baby dragon because he didn't want to regret anything. Even if the decision was dangerous, he didn't want to look back someday and feel that he had made the wrong choice or that he had allowed fear to limit him. The system accepted his decision and fulfilled his wish. In the very next moment, his body began to change as he transformed into a yellow baby dragon, exactly as he had chosen. Along with his evolution, he gained a large number of new skills, and all of his statistics increased tremendously compared to before. However, despite evolving, his health and energy hadn't been fully restored afterward, which meant he was still exhausted and needed proper rest before continuing his journey. Suddenly, his stomach let out a loud growl, making it clear that he needed food quickly. He looked at the worm he had defeated earlier and was surprised to find that it now looked appetizing to him. At that moment, he realized that if he wanted to become stronger, he needed protein. And with that realization, the instincts of a dragon awakened within him completely. Without a moment of hesitation, he devoured the worm whole. After eating, he stretched out and fell asleep. When he woke up the next morning, he felt energized, as though he had fully recovered after a good night's rest. He headed toward the river to see his reflection, and there, he finally admitted to himself that he had truly been reborn into this world. But the strange thing was that he had absolutely no memories of his previous life. He couldn't remember who he had been, how he had lived, or even whether he had been a man or a woman. While thinking about that, he suddenly turned his head and noticed several black worms behind him. This time, instead of running away, he charged at them directly. Using his new skills, he wiped out the first group in record time. The more of them he defeated, the more additional skills he unlocked, making combat easier and more powerful as time passed. After finishing them all off, he began to feel hungry again. But this time, he had no desire to eat the black worms because their taste had been absolutely disgusting the last time. He noticed some mushrooms growing nearby and decided to try them instead. That decision turned out to be a catastrophic mistake because he quickly discovered that the mushrooms were poisonous. After suffering through the effects of the poison, he made a firm decision that he would never eat random mushrooms again for the rest of his life. Having learned that lesson, he decided to venture deeper into the forest in search of real prey because he truly didn't want to continue living off black worms. He explored the area for a while until he noticed a gray wolf nearby. Even though the wolf was larger than him, he managed to use the baby breath skill and dragon punch to bring it down. The flame scorched the wolf's skin slightly, and after smelling the aroma, he realized it smelled exactly like barbecue. Out of curiosity, he used baby breath again to cook it a little more. When he took his first bite, he discovered that it tasted unbelievably amazing. Later, he encountered another gray wolf and defeated it in almost no time at all. That allowed him to raise his level to level 20 out of 25. At that point, he realized that he still needed 5 more levels before he could evolve once again. After the wolf died, he roasted it the same way he had done before and began to feel that he was genuinely getting used to living as a dragon. Hunting, fighting, and eating this way had become natural to him. Even though he was growing stronger, having only the sacred voice to talk to had started making him feel lonely and bored. Because of that, he found himself wishing for a close friend to stand by his side. Strangely enough, his wish came true much faster than he had expected. After a short while, he heard voices coming from the distance. He couldn't understand the language they were speaking at all, but despite that, He felt relieved the moment he heard those voices because he recognized them as human voices. He quickly hid behind a nearby tree and peeked out cautiously, spotting a small group of adventurers walking in his direction. At first, he considered revealing himself and trying to talk to them, but then he suddenly remembered that he was a dragon. Because of that, he began wondering whether they would attack him the moment they saw him. At the same time, however, he thought about the fact that he was small, not particularly intimidating, and even somewhat cute. Maybe they wouldn't see him as a threat. They might even keep him as a pet. With that hope in mind, he stepped out from behind the tree and stood before them, doing everything he could to appear harmless and adorable. But unfortunately, his plan failed completely. The adventurers didn't think he was cute at all. On the contrary, they saw him as nothing more than prey and expensive meat. Without a moment of hesitation, the leader of the group struck him in the chest with his sword. Immediately after that, the man used a spell that numbed his entire body and left him unable to move properly. He tried to escape with all his strength, but his body no longer responded because of the paralysis effect. As he lay there helpless, he saw the adventurers calmly approaching him, and it was painfully clear that they intended to kill him. In that moment, he realized just how foolish he had been to believe that a dragon could ever befriend humans. After everything he had been through, and all the effort he had put into evolving and surviving, he felt that everything was about to end now in a meaningless death. And just as the team leader raised his weapon to deliver the final blow, a female adventurer suddenly stepped in and stopped him. She said there was no need to kill such a small, cute, and innocent dragon like that. Confused, he began wondering why he was still alive. A few seconds later, he felt warmth spreading through his body. When he looked up, he discovered that the female adventurer was using healing magic on him. He quickly used the appraisal skill and learned that her name was Maria. Even though her energy was low, she still decided to heal him anyway. Maria continued talking to him, and after a short while, the system announced that he had acquired the Greek language skill, which would allow him to understand the human language more clearly if he developed it further. But that peaceful moment did not last long. Suddenly, loud screams echoed from up ahead. Maria immediately recognized the voices and understood that they belonged to her companions. And without thinking, she tried to run to help them. But before she could leave, he grabbed her arm and desperately tried to stop her, warning her that whatever was ahead was extremely dangerous and that she could not face it alone. Even so, Maria pulled his hand away and ran toward the place, leaving him behind. At that moment, he realized that he could not just stand there and watch while the girl who had saved his life was in danger. So he gathered his courage, forced himself to move, and ran after her. When he finally reached the place, his fear grew even stronger when he saw the monster they were fighting. It was a rock dragon, a C-rank monster. And worst of all, it had 197 health points, which meant defeating it would require an enormous amount of damage. Maria had already been injured by the monster, and when he called out to her, the rock dragon immediately turned its attention toward him. The moment he looked at the gigantic creature focusing on him, he froze in place from fear, unable to move, and began wondering if this was truly the end. He immediately ran and hid deeper inside the bushes, curling up as fear completely took over him. His mind was racing, and he had no idea how he was supposed to survive this disaster. But the moment he carefully peeked through the trees and saw Maria lying on the ground with only 6 health points remaining, his fear turned into genuine terror. Before he could even think properly, the sacred voice suddenly spoke to him and ordered him to run away immediately. It told him clearly that if he faced this monster directly, he would have absolutely no chance of survival. Those words only made him even more tense. Deep down, he knew the sacred voice was right. He was far too weak to face a rock dragon of that size, and he was still inexperienced and completely unprepared. Logically, the smartest and safest choice was to turn around and run at full speed, and that really was the logical decision. But even though he understood all of that, he could not leave Maria behind and walk away while she died. Without any time to hesitate, he forced himself to move. He barely managed to dodge one of the rock dragon's attacks, then immediately countered with a direct strike to its face. After the blow, he quickly looked to the side and noticed the 2 adventurers he had seen earlier. One of them was already dead, while the other was barely alive, with only 5 health points left. When he saw that scene, he quickly formed a plan. His goal was to lure the rock dragon away from them, create some distance, and then return to help whoever was still alive if he could. So he turned and ran, pushing his body with all his strength to escape. But before he could get far, the rock dragon slammed the ground with terrifying force, creating a violent shockwave. The impact threw him off balance and knocked him to the ground. As he tried to get up, the rock dragon charged straight toward him and closed the distance between them in an instant. The monster drew closer and closer, and the moment it leaped to attack, he immediately struck back, driving a fire-covered punch straight into the rock dragon's face. The attack landed directly, and he believed that it must have taken at least half of the monster's health. But the real shock came when the rock dragon suddenly began healing itself, and its health points returned to full, as if nothing had happened. Still, he quickly noticed that while the dragon was busy healing, this was the perfect chance to grab Maria and escape from the area. But before he could turn and leave, he remembered that the other adventurer was still alive nearby, and deep inside, he knew he did not have the strength or the time to save both of them. After a painful inner struggle, he made the extremely painful decision to leave the other adventurer to die and focus only on saving Maria. He carried Maria and ran with her deeper into the forest as fast as he could, but suddenly, he stopped when he noticed the scent of gray wolves nearby, and his sense of smell had never betrayed him before. Moments later, an entire pack of gray wolves began chasing him while Maria was on his back. He ran with everything he had until the wolves completely surrounded him, leaving no path of escape. After a few minutes, Maria opened her eyes for a moment and saw him fighting and killing several gray wolves all by himself, using only his hands and teeth before she lost consciousness again. After he finished off all the wolves, he continued carrying Maria through the forest once more. Eventually, he noticed a small human village in the distance. He began screaming at the top of his lungs, asking for help, hoping that the humans would help them. But just as he expected, the humans saw him as nothing more than a dangerous monster and meat worth hunting. One of them immediately stabbed him with a spear, while the others pointed their weapons at him. He desperately tried to explain that he did not want to hurt anyone and that he was only trying to save Maria, but the humans did not understand a single word he was saying. After a while, he realized that arguing was useless, so he gently placed Maria on the ground so the humans could take care of her, then quickly ran away before they attacked him again. As soon as he left, the humans immediately began treating Maria's wounds. He felt a great sense of relief when he realized that she was finally safe. As he walked away, he realized that humans and dragons might never truly be able to become friends. Quietly, he returned to his home deep inside the forest. The next day, Maria woke up lying on a bed and saw a girl named Marielle looking at her. Marielle explained that Maria had been severely injured and had been brought to her house so she could receive proper treatment. Then she told her that she had been unconscious for 2 full days. Maria listened as she lay back down on the bed, but she could not stop thinking about the person who had carried her from the forest all the way to the village. At first, she thought the ones who had saved her were her friends Grants and Da, so she asked Marielle where they were, but Marielle told her that Grants had died and his body had been found in the forest. As for Da, they could not find his body at all, so they assumed that the rock dragon had eaten him. Marielle described Grants and Da as fools because they had tried to fight a rock dragon and believed they actually had a chance to win. Maria was completely shocked when she heard that her friends had died, and she began blaming herself for everything that had happened. But Marielle told her not to torture herself like that, and that in truth, it was better that she was the one who survived because her friends had been stubborn and never listened to anyone. When Maria heard those words, she began remembering how Da had always been the first person in the village to deal with monsters that came near the area. Many of the village children admired him and his courage because of that. But one time, Da encountered a rock dragon and chose to run away instead of fighting it. Because of that incident, some of the villagers kept mocking him, saying that he had been afraid of the rock dragon and ran away instead of standing his ground. Those words affected Da deeply, and his pride was badly wounded. That was why he swore that the next time he saw a rock dragon, he would defeat it no matter what. 2 days ago, Da became obsessed with proving that he was the strongest adventurer around. He even lied and said that Marielle had given him permission to go hunt a rock dragon. Maria tried with all her strength to warn him and tell him that it was extremely dangerous, but his pride took control of him, and he refused to back down. He insisted on going to face the dragon, and he even pressured Maria and made her feel guilty until she agreed to go with him. That was exactly why Marielle said Da had been a fool, that his pride had blinded him, and in the end, it caused his death. Despite everything that had happened, Marielle was still surprised that Maria had managed to survive without suffering severe injuries. After that, Maria told her that someone must have carried her from the forest, but Marielle quickly interrupted her and said that was impossible. She explained that no adventurer would risk their life to save some random injured adventurer from a terrifying monster like the rock dragon. Even so, Maria insisted that she clearly remembered someone carrying her and bringing her back toward the village, but Marielle believed that her memories were confused because of the heavy blow she had taken during the battle. Even then, Maria could not fully accept that explanation because she had a faint memory that the one who saved her had been a dragon. And the more she thought about it, the more she began to wonder whether that little dragon really had been the one who saved her and carried her all the way to the village. The next day, he woke up feeling full of energy, surprised by how much his injuries had improved simply because he had slept well through the night. At that moment, he realized that if he were still human, it would have been impossible for him to recover that quickly. A human body simply could not heal like that in a single night. After pushing that thought out of his mind, he looked up at the sky and began wondering how Maria was doing and whether she was safe or not. Then his mind returned to the battle against the rock dragon, and he remembered how his attacks had barely affected it and how helpless he had felt the entire time. That memory created an incredibly powerful drive inside him, and he swore that he would become stronger no matter what it took, so he could protect people who were in danger. With that goal in mind, he immediately began training by tracking down a group of black worms and eliminating them, hoping to gather enough experience to reach the next stage of evolution. After a short while, he received a message from the system telling him that he had reached level 25 and that he had now fulfilled the requirements for evolution. Unlike the previous time when he only had 2 evolution options, this time he had 5 different evolution paths in front of him. That left him confused, unable to decide which one to choose. That was when the sacred voice decided to step in and explain the options to him. It began by talking about the miniature dragon, explaining that its body was small and similar to his current baby dragon form, but its evolution speed was extremely slow, and its future evolution options were also very limited. The moment he heard that, he immediately lost interest, because slow growth was the last thing he wanted, and he asked the voice to explain the next option instead. The sacred voice began explaining each evolution one by one in detail, but the option that caught his attention the most was the small plague dragon. The small plague dragon was described as the first stage of an evil dragon that spreads disasters wherever it goes. One of its traits was that it had high intelligence, and it could also use the human transformation skill, which would allow it to turn into a human and visit villages freely. At first, he quickly rejected the idea the moment he heard that it was the offspring of an evil dragon. But after thinking for a little while, he remembered that the voice had mentioned transformation into a human. His face flushed with excitement as he imagined himself turning into a human and walking through villages whenever he wanted. Still, he knew that choosing this evolution meant he would become an evil dragon that spread plague. Because of that, he remained torn and unable to decide, fully aware that the wrong choice could ruin everything. He knew that evolving into a small plague dragon was a bad idea from every possible angle, but at the same time, he was worried about Maria. On top of all that, he truly wanted the human transformation skill. After a long time thinking it over, he finally made his decision and said that he would evolve into a small plague dragon. The sacred voice acknowledged his choice, and the evolution process began immediately. His body started to change, and the transformation was extremely violent. When everything was finally over, he looked at his reflection in the water. That was when he realized he had become far uglier than his old form. After that, the sacred voice began announcing all the skills that had evolved within him. At first, he was extremely excited. Hearing about all his new abilities made him feel powerful and hopeful, but that excitement quickly vanished the moment he saw all the evil skills he had gained as well. The list of dark and dangerous abilities made him uncomfortable, and he began to worry about the kind of creature he was turning into. Even worse, the main reason he had chosen this evolution was to obtain the human transformation skill, but when he looked at his status panel, he discovered that the skill was not there at all. He felt deeply frustrated and asked the sacred voice whether he needed to raise his level first in order to obtain that skill. As usual, the sacred voice proved completely useless and answered that it could not explain that kind of information because he was still only level 3. That answer made him even more upset and confused. After that, the system continued explaining the rest of his current skills in detail. With every new skill that appeared, his shock grew even stronger. Most of the skills seemed cruel, poisonous, or designed to spread disease and destruction. Every time he learned something new, he felt as though he was mentally breaking down because he was beginning to understand just how evil and dangerous this dragon form truly was. In that moment, he deeply regretted his decision, and all he wanted now was to go back to being a small, cute dragon instead of this terrifying creature. At the same time, Marielle went with Maria to restore the magic of the protection stones. Maria was still confused, unsure whether the monster that had saved her was real or just a hallucination. Marielle, however, was taking the matter seriously. She thought that if a monster had managed to enter because the protection stones were broken, then that meant they had a serious problem with the village's defenses. After they finished restoring the magic of the stones, Maria asked Marielle to tell her more about monsters. Marielle noticed that Maria had become strangely obsessed with the subject of monsters ever since the incident that had happened to her. Maria explained that the reason was because she strongly felt that the monster back then had truly been trying to save her. That thought refused to leave her mind, and because of that, she wanted to understand monsters more. Marielle saw no harm in letting Maria learn more about monsters, so she began explaining. She told her that monsters grow stronger with every evolution, and they usually do that by hunting other creatures in order to raise their levels. Marielle continued explaining and said that levels were not exclusive to monsters, because humans also developed their abilities by gaining experience. But monsters worked a little differently. Marielle continued her explanation, saying that when monsters reached their maximum level, they did not simply stop growing. Instead, they evolved into a monster of a full higher rank. After that, the same process repeated all over again. They hunted, raised their levels, reached a certain limit, and then evolved into a much stronger form. And every evolution made them stronger, more dangerous, and harder to defeat than before. Maria was truly shocked when she heard all of this. She could not believe that humans had learned all this information about how monsters grew and evolved. To her, it seemed almost impossible, because humans were completely different from monsters. But Marielle told her that this was still not the whole story. She explained that from time to time, special people appeared who could hear the sacred voice. That voice shared information with them about monsters, such as their levels, their abilities, and even their origins. The people who possessed this rare ability were known as heroes or saints. Thanks to them, humans had been able to gather extremely detailed knowledge about monsters and their nature. After that, Marielle's tone became more serious. She told Maria that every monster in the world was driven by the instinct to become stronger and more ferocious. That was their fundamental nature. Because of that, even if a monster really had saved Maria's life before, the next time it met her, it might have already evolved into a far more dangerous creature, and in that case, it would most likely attack her instead of helping her. In the end, Marielle warned Maria not to form the wrong idea about monsters. She explained that monsters were nothing more than pure embodiments of the instinct to fight. Their entire existence revolved around strengthening themselves through battles and conflict. That was why monsters and humans were never created to live peacefully together. After saying those words, Marielle turned and walked away, leaving Maria alone with countless thoughts. At the same time, he was still determined to raise his level so he could finally obtain the human transformation skill and see Maria again. He hoped to find weak monsters so he could level up quickly and get closer to his goal. But after moving for a while, he started to feel that movement had become a little difficult. When he looked up, he discovered that he was caught in a giant web, and a massive monster spider descended behind him with a heavy sound. He immediately checked the spider's stats and discovered that they were far higher than anything he could handle at his current level. At that moment, he quickly understood that he probably would not be able to defeat it in his current state. The spider attacked first, and he responded with baby breath. The attack actually dealt a lot of damage, but when he looked at the spider's stat screen, he noticed that its health had barely gone down. So he decided to try something else and use the paralysis attacks of the plague dragon. He unleashed a large barrage of those attacks, hoping to weaken it or slow it down. But even after all that, the spider still had more than half of its health remaining. At that moment, he realized that direct power alone would not work. When he saw how strong the spider was and how weakly his attacks affected it, he decided that the best solution was to run away immediately before it was too late. So he started running at full speed. But before he could even process what was happening, he found the spider right behind him, moving much faster than he had expected. He tried using the flight skill to escape, but he instantly discovered that his level was still far too low to truly fly. Because of that, his only option was to keep rolling and dodging while trying to get away. He kept moving and evading until he noticed a nearby cliff. Even though he knew the flight skill was still unstable at his current level, level, he decided to take the risk and spread his wings at the last moment. With that move, he managed to glide safely to the other side of the cliff. The moment he landed, he celebrated a little, feeling both relief and a sense of accomplishment because he had managed to escape from the spider this time without getting injured. But before he could leave, he noticed something terrifying. The spider had used its threads to create a bridge over the gap and had begun crossing toward him. He froze in place for a moment as he realized the battle was not over yet. Then, he continued rolling as fast as he could, avoiding obstacles and trying to create as much distance as possible between himself and the spider. Along the way, he encountered several other monsters, and each time he managed to defeat them without much difficulty. He kept moving and fighting, and every encounter increased his experience little by little. After a short while, the sacred voice suddenly announced that he had risen from level 3 to level 8. When he heard that, he began to feel that he actually had a chance to defeat the spider if he played it smart. Just as he was preparing to fight again, the spider released a cloud of poisonous gas. The sudden attack made him leap into the trees quickly to avoid the gas. While he was above, he suddenly remembered that he already had poison resistance, meaning the gas would not affect him at all. He also realized that the spider did not know that, which gave him a chance to use the gas to his advantage. So he dropped down from the tree in a way that made him look as if he had died from the gas. When the spider approached to eat him, he seized the moment. In midair, he struck it with baby breath, then slammed it hard into the ground, finally succeeding in killing it for good. The experience he gained from defeating a monster of that strength made his level jump from 8 to 14, and he felt incredibly excited. But even after that major increase, he still did not obtain the human transformation skill. That made him start to suspect that there was another condition he needed to fulfill before he could obtain the skill. On his way back, he noticed a nearby cave with a distinctive and nice appearance. Once he made sure there was no one inside, he decided to make it his personal cave. After that, he prepared his food inside, and after he ate, he sat down and thought to himself. He wondered whether he would ever be able to coexist with humans, but he quickly realized that it would be extremely difficult because of his current frightening appearance as a plague dragon. And worst of all, he still had not obtained the human transformation skill, which made him quietly regret choosing this form from the very beginning. At the same time, inside a local restaurant, Maria was shocked when she heard an old man say that he had seen Da a little while ago. According to him, he had been fishing near the forest when he saw Da walking into the woods until he disappeared from sight. Everyone in the place knew that this old man was addicted to drinking, so most people thought he was imagining things or rambling nonsense. But the old man insisted that he had clearly seen Da. Maria immediately ran to Marielle and told her what she had heard, then asked for permission to go search the forest. But Marielle refused right away and said it was impossible for Da to still be alive, because if he were alive, he would have returned to the village long ago. When she saw how deeply the matter was affecting Maria, she reassured her that she would have the guild investigate the issue and see what they could do. Maria thanked her and felt a small sense of relief when she heard that. The next day, he woke up full of energy, more determined than ever to achieve human transformation. But then he noticed a strange substance on the ground nearby that looked like slime. Out of curiosity, he tried to examine its stats. The moment he did, his vision blurred and he felt an extremely sharp pain in his eyes. Despite the pain, that attempt caused his stat inspection skill to rise to level 4. With this new level, he was finally able to see a faint image of the slime's status screen, and when he read it, he could not believe his eyes. He was shocked and confused, unable to understand how a slime like this could have such terrifying and powerful stats, far beyond anything he would expect from such a simple creature. Suddenly, the slime tried to attack him, but he managed to escape before it was too late. In the end, he decided to simply leave it alone. After that, he continued his journey in a new direction. A few minutes later, he found something that looked like a neat clay pot, and he thought it might be useful for storing fruit. But the moment he grabbed it, it suddenly moved, and he discovered that it was a D-rank monster named Potortoise, a mix between a pot and a turtle at the same time. He immediately tried to finish it off using Dragon Punch, but even after the blow landed directly, the damage was almost non-existent. He thought that maybe he just was not using his full strength, so he hit it with everything he had, but the monster simply used the rest skill and restored its health completely again. Out of sheer frustration, he started wrestling it with his hands and tried relying on brute strength, but its shell was so hard that he could not even open it. At that moment, he realized that this method would never work. But then he remembered that this was a land turtle, not a sea turtle. And since land turtles are known to be terrible swimmers, he simply threw it into the river and considered the matter finished. The system immediately announced that he had gained 36 experience points after defeating it, and he had now reached level 15. Some of his other skills also leveled up, which made him a little happy. Just as he was about to continue exploring the forest, he encountered another group of potortoise monsters. After that, she thought to herself that as long as she stayed calm and focused, she could cross the forest safely. At the same time, he was busy learning about different kinds of fruits and vegetables, and he was genuinely starting to admire them. Meanwhile, Maria continued going deeper and deeper into the forest as she searched for Da. With every step she took into the woods, her fear grew stronger and her heart began beating faster. When she reached a certain point, she finally decided that she would only take a quick look around the edges of the village, then return home, convincing herself that she would not go any deeper than that. Late that night, he returned home and felt happy when he found that his dish was finally finished. He used it with the vegetables and meat he had gathered that same day. After he finished preparing the food, he tasted it. Immediately, he said that this was the best food he had ever eaten in his entire life. But the dish he had made turned out to be a little difficult to drink from, and it also leaked. Because of that, he decided that tomorrow he would make a better and more comfortable one. The next morning, a carriage appeared, traveling through a valley. Inside the carriage was a woman being addressed as Princess Milkia, and two adventurers traveling with her woke her up. The adventurers looked toward the forest beside them and quickly agreed that this had to be the forest the guild wanted them to investigate. At the same time, he had just returned from hunting wolves. He began skinning the wolves and entered the forest to hang their hides in the air so they could dry. But that same group of monkeys kept returning again and again, eating parts of the hides whenever he left them unattended. This began to annoy him greatly. Because of that, he put a wicked look on his face and decided to poison the next batch of hides so the monkeys would die the moment they ate from them. After making that decision, he set out to search for poisonous flowers. After a while, he entered a wide field filled with colorful and dangerous poisonous plants. But there, he discovered something completely different, a type of monster he had never seen before. He used the appraisal skill and learned that its name was Poison Princess Lacerda. But what caught his attention the most was that this species had only poison-related skills. Suddenly, Poison Princess ran away the moment she saw him, making him think she had gotten scared and fled. But after a short while, she suddenly appeared out of nowhere, quickly bit him in the neck, and then immediately ran away again. In that moment, he felt completely confused. He began wondering why her bite had been so light and why she had run away afterward instead of continuing the fight. But immediately after that, a massive wave of poison suddenly spread through his body. The sensation was unlike anything he had ever felt before. He fell to his knees and realized he could not even move his shoulders. Moments later, he collapsed to the ground and finally understood that this had been Poison Princess's plan from the very beginning. And he began wondering whether this poison was different from ordinary poison. From what he was feeling, it was clear that the poison was causing far more damage than normal. His body grew heavy, his breathing became difficult, and even his thoughts began to slow down. In that moment, he understood one clear truth. If he stayed lying there without thinking or coming up with a plan, he would definitely die. That thought terrified him, but at the same time, it forced his mind to stay awake. So he pushed himself to think, and began wondering what he could do now to survive. After a brief moment of thought, he reached a decision. The only path left for him now was to learn more about the black lizard that had poisoned him, because if he understood it, he might be able to find a cure for the poison. With that hope, he requested the appraisal skill, and the sacred voice responded and began explaining. It told him that this creature was a D-rank monster, and that its hunting method was extremely cruel. It poisoned its prey, then fled instead of killing it directly, and once the poison took effect and weakened or killed the prey, it would return to devour it. Then it continued and explained an even more dangerous point. Poison Princess produced the poison inside her own body by consuming toxic materials over time, but she had one very serious weakness. Her bodily fluids were the only known antidote to her poison. The moment he heard that, everything changed in his mind. If he wanted to live, he had to catch Poison Princess alive and use her bodily fluids to heal himself. There was no other solution. Thanks to his poison resistance, he was not completely helpless yet, so he moved with the last of his strength and used the rolling skill through the forest. Poison Princess chased him the same way, using the rolling skill as well. Suddenly, he was struck by a mud spike, and he realized she could use the same skill. He kept rolling while resisting the poison until his vision began to weaken, and suddenly, he remembered the cliff he had jumped from before with the giant spider. That idea flashed through his mind, and he decided to use the same plan. He gathered the last of his strength, increased his speed, and in a sudden moment, turned around and pushed Poison Princess off the cliff. He felt relief for a moment, but that relief turned into terror when he remembered that her bodily fluids were the only cure, and if she died, he would die too. Without hesitation, he jumped after her, and in midair, the poison struck him again, even harder. His strength began to collapse, but he refused to give up and used the baby breath skill. The explosion pushed them upward, and with great difficulty, they returned to the ground. After that, his body completely gave out. He collapsed unconscious, and Poison Princess fell onto his chest. Somewhere far away, Maria was returning to the village after spending another day searching for Da without any result. Suddenly, she heard Marielle calling out to her while she was trying to hide the fact that she had been in the forest. She quickly stepped out and acted calmly, as if nothing had happened. Marielle was relieved when she saw her and said she had been worried about her and had searched everywhere for her, then asked where she had been. Maria replied that she had been feeling a little tired and went out for a walk to get some fresh air. But Marielle felt that something was not right, and she got the feeling that Maria had actually been in the forest searching for Da. So she asked her directly, but Maria quickly denied it and repeated the same explanation. And although Marielle was not completely convinced, she had no proof, so she had no choice but to believe her. Then she changed the subject and told her that she had heard a group of adventurers were heading out to explore the forest and search for Da. She told Maria that professionals were handling the matter now, so there was no need to worry. Then she calmly asked her to leave the search to them and focus on staying safe. Maria nodded and listened, but her heart was still anxious. Meanwhile, in the middle of the forest, he began waking up slowly. When his vision cleared, he found Poison Princess sitting in front of him. At first, he expected the worst and thought she was waiting to eat him after the poison took effect. But when he tried to move, he noticed that his arms were no longer heavy, and the pain from the poison had disappeared. He understood that Poison Princess had not waited to eat him. She had given him the antidote. Somehow, she had used her bodily fluids to save him. When he realized that, he understood that after he jumped from the cliff to save her, Poison Princess had begun to like him or trust him. She no longer saw him as prey. In that quiet moment, a bond began to form between them. Their strange friendship began, but it was real. After a while, he decided to take her with him to his home. He prepared a simple dinner for them, and as they ate together, he felt at ease. He realized that this was the first time in a while that he had eaten with someone, and that his loneliness had started to disappear. After they spent time together, he thought about the fact that neither he nor she had a name. He thought about what to name Poison Princess, but then stopped himself and realized that names were not important. What mattered was that they understood each other and were no longer alone. After that, he and Poison Princess grew very close and became true partners who hunted together. They learned how to move together, when to attack, and when to retreat. Her presence became natural to him. But there was one thing he could not get used to. Poison Princess did not like ordinary food, and she refused to eat anything he gave her. She only liked poisonous plants and poisonous mushrooms inside the forest. The smell of the mushrooms was awful, so he decided to stop her and used baby breath to burn them before she could eat them. Poison Princess became extremely upset. He realized he had made a mistake. To her, those plants were a source of power, and burning them was like an attack. So he promised her he would bring her some later. Before he could think about where to find them, a terrifying presence appeared. A rare monster named Twin Heads appeared before them. It had two heads, each with a different color and expression, and it was clear that it had come to fight. He froze for a moment because he had never seen anything like it before. He noticed its powerful aura and the danger it carried, and he realized it possessed special skills like gravity. That shook his confidence, and he was not sure he could defeat it. Doubt slipped into his mind, but he did not let it take control. Despite the danger, neither he nor Poison Princess had any intention of surrendering. They quickly looked at each other, and without a word, they understood that they had to fight together. The plan was simple. He would face Twin Heads directly and draw its attention, while Poison Princess would hide up in a tree and wait for the right moment to use her poison. He charged forward and launched the first attack to test the monster's strength. The monster countered with a powerful attack that forced him back. Before he could move again, the blue head opened its mouth and used magic. A magic circle appeared beneath his feet, and gravity increased terrifyingly. His body slammed into the ground. He felt his weight multiply, and moving became extremely difficult. When he was trapped, Poison Princess threw a mud attack mixed with poison at the monster, causing the spell to stop and the gravity to disappear. He fired baby breath at it, but the monster quickly regained its strength. He understood that the blue head was for magic, while the red head was for physical attacks. He attacked and struck the blue head, causing it to lose balance. Poison Princess came down and poisoned it. The monster suffered and tried to heal itself. Suddenly, the monster severed the blue head itself to stop the poison. He was shocked, but then discovered that the blue head was still moving on its own and chasing Poison Princess. The red head stopped him, so he continued fighting it. The battle became a clash of strength and skill. He used Nutcracker and finished off the redhead. Then he grew worried about Poison Princess and started searching for her. He found her injured, but still alive. The blue head attacked again, so he grabbed it, crushed it, and ended the danger. He embraced Poison Princess and told her he did not want to return to being human, and that he was content to remain a dragon with her. The system announced an increase in his stats and the unlocking of the human transformation skill, leaving him shocked. In the village, Maria and Marielle were preparing to welcome the adventurers Melia and Yuno. They had come to search for the missing Da. Marielle explained that she was afraid Maria would enter the forest alone. She asked them to confirm whether Da had died so Maria would stop searching and putting herself in danger. Melia and Yuno agreed and headed into the forest to search for Da's body. Elsewhere, he was focused on the human transformation skill he had unlocked. He was extremely excited because he had lived as a dragon for a long time, and now he finally had a chance to return to being human. He went to a distant open area to test it safely. He could not believe he was about to return to a human form. For a while, he had been convinced that he could live without becoming human. But when the opportunity came, he discovered that he still wanted it. Returning to humanity would change many things, and his relationship with Poison Princess might change because they had grown close while he was a dragon. But he wanted both things, to stay by her side and to live normally among humans. He thought that if he switched between human and dragon every 3 days, he could balance both lives. Then suddenly, a thought crossed his mind. What if he turned into a girl instead of a man? He did not know how precise the skill was, or whether it would return him to his old body or create a completely different form. In the end, he decided to try it. He activated the human transformation ability and imagined himself as a handsome man, but the result shocked him. His body transformed into a deformed shape, uglier than the plague dragon itself. He became upset and asked the sacred voice for an explanation. The voice told him he had to raise his level before it could explain. He opened his status screen and found that his attack and defense had dropped by half, so he ended the experiment quickly. That form drained him and made him weaker, so he stopped the attempt and returned to his dragon form. At the same time, Melia and Yuno continued their search for Da. They encountered a spider monster and defeated it easily, but found no trace of Da. As night fell, exhaustion began to show on them, and the forest became more dangerous. Before returning, they found a hidden cave, and at its entrance were 2 small dragon statues. Yuno thought they were decorations, but Melia was suspicious because she had never heard of a religion worshipping dragons here, and she felt magical energy coming from the statues. They entered the cave cautiously. The place surprised them as it was clean, organized, and comfortable, and it did not resemble a monster's lair. The walls were reinforced, there was lighting, and everything seemed deliberately arranged. They thought it might be a hideout for thieves or smugglers because the place was not normal. After a while, they encountered Poison Princess. She appeared calmly and kept hissing and warning them without attacking, then went deeper into the cave. Melia recognized her immediately and said she was dangerous and that one bite from her could kill, so she decided they had to leave because this was bigger than an ordinary search mission. Outside the cave, he had seen Melia and Yuno entering. He became excited because this was the second time he would interact with humans after his reincarnation. He activated the transformation skill again and went to the cave entrance to meet them. But the moment they saw him, they attacked immediately because they saw a terrifying monster. He was caught off guard and did not have time to respond, and their strikes were fast. After that, they withdrew and ran out of the cave. After they got away, Yuno asked Melia what the next step was. Melia refused to return to the village to report because they had no evidence about Da and no explanation for what was inside the cave. Yuno understood that Melia wanted to contact the rest of their team because whatever was inside the cave required support, so they decided to leave the forest and regroup with their team. The next day, he woke up in his cave full of energy. His strength had returned and his frustration over the failed transformation had faded. He focused on food. The monkeys were stealing his dried meat. He politely asked Poison Princess to make a poison with no smell or taste. His plan was to cover the meat with poison, and when the monkeys stole it, they would die. Poison Princess agreed and prepared the poison. He spread it over the meat and waited. The monkeys appeared and began eating, and the poison started working. They weakened, and some of them collapsed. He lunged at them and attacked, but discovered they were stronger than he had expected. Even while poisoned, they tried to surround him, but he and Poison Princess were stronger than them. She struck with mud spikes, while he followed up with direct attacks. And as the battle was nearing its end, one of the monkeys let out a loud scream. The ground shook, and a massive gorilla emerged from between the trees. Its size was terrifying. It was far taller than him, and it was clearly their leader. He felt slightly tense, but instead of acting recklessly, he opened the status window and began carefully examining the gorilla's stats. When he compared his stats to the orangutans, he noticed they were close. But then he discovered that it had a skill that boosted the abilities of its followers. The moment it activated it, the monkey's strength and speed increased several times over, and they became a real threat. He and Poison Princess were pushed back, and the monkeys began attacking in formation, their strikes growing stronger. He called out to the system, and the sacred voice explained that this was not a gorilla, but an evolved orangutan of rank D+, which explained its intelligence and leadership. He felt that they were going to lose, but then he remembered that he had a telepathic communication skill. He grabbed a monkey as a hostage and tried to negotiate mentally with the orangutan, saying that they were defending their territory and did not want a war. The orangutan replied inside his mind that it was impossible to let them go because they were a danger to the clan and had to be eliminated. He understood that negotiation was useless, so he proposed a duel because the orangutan valued the pride of the clan, and duels were sacred to them. The orangutan agreed, and the monkeys stepped back because no one was allowed to interfere in a sacred duel. The duel began. At first, it looked like he was running away, but in truth, he was luring the orangutan into advancing too far, then striking it with precise counterattacks. The advantage shifted in his favor, and the orangutan began slowing down from the damage. Suddenly, the orangutan spent all of its points on speed, making its movement almost impossible to see, and the pressure on him increased, so he also put all of his points into speed. The battle turned into a violent exchange of direct blows, and both of them began taking heavy injuries. He realized he was close to his limit, so he decided to end it with one final strike. When the orangutan threw a punch, he activated Dragon Counterattack. The timing was perfect, and his strike landed directly in its face. The orangutan staggered and began to fall. He thought he had won, but the orangutan gathered the last of its strength and threw one final heavy punch that struck him, causing him to fall as well. Since his attack had landed first, the system declared him the winner. The last thing he saw before his eyes closed was Poison Princess protecting him. The voice of the system said he had gained 162 experience points and reached level 39. A few hours later, he woke up confused and found himself inside the cave. He remembered that he really had defeated the giant orangutan, and he got excited. From Poison Princess's appearance, he understood that she had carried him back, so he celebrated the victory with her. But then he was surprised when he saw the same group of monkeys. He thought they had come for revenge, but on the contrary, they were cheering and celebrating him as if they had acknowledged him as their new leader. He opened his status screen and discovered that he had received the title of clan leader. Poison Princess became aggressive toward the monkeys, but he calmed her down and said they could use them for work. As he dealt with the monkeys, she began to change, but he did not notice because he was excited about the new situation. And when the monkeys started taking care of the work, he found himself with free time. He thought about making clay vessels so they could store more food. The next day, he began making the vessels, while a monkey watched with curiosity. He taught it the method and told Kin to try it himself. When he went outside, he was surprised to find Poison Princess trying to make a vessel, so he told her it was natural that she would not be able to do it with such small hands and legs. But she misunderstood, became embarrassed, and ran away. He was confused and noticed that she had been acting strangely lately. At the same time, Melia and Yuno were sitting in a restaurant, waiting for the rest of their team and feeling worried. Melia reassured Yuno, but Yuno could not forget the terror of the plague dragon. So Melia said they would deal with the matter soon. Inside the cave, he woke up and found Poison Princess in front of him, with the monkeys sleeping on top of him. He tried to wake them up but could not, so he went back to sleep. After a while, he woke up to find a monkey collapsed, exhausted and asking for help. He used appraisal and discovered that Poison Princess had poisoned it. He got angry and demanded that she give him the antidote. At first, she refused, but after he insisted, she agreed and gave it to the monkey, and its condition improved. He asked her why she had done that. She admitted that she felt he had been ignoring her ever since the monkeys arrived, and that she believed he no longer cared about her. He understood that he had neglected her feelings, apologized sincerely, and said he wanted to spend time with her. He suggested that the two of them go on a hunting trip together the next day, just the two of them. Poison Princess became extremely happy and immediately agreed. Elsewhere, Maria noticed that several days had passed since the adventurers entered the forest, and there had been no news. Her worry grew, so she decided to enter the forest herself to search for Da and the others. The next day, he and Poison Princess went out on their hunting date. He was excited and happy about the fresh air and the outing, but she was not happy because he had brought the monkeys with him. She had expected the time to be for the two of them alone. The monkeys were extremely excited, which made her feel disappointed, so she walked ahead by herself. Suddenly, she sensed danger, and two wolves emerged from the trees. He thought it would be an easy fight, but the monkeys rushed forward and finished off the wolves with excellent coordination in seconds. The two of them were left standing there with nothing to do. The monkeys celebrated, and Poison Princess felt even more sidelined. At the same time, Mara had gone too deep into the forest and gotten lost. She was about to turn back, but then she saw Da in front of her, called out to him, and followed him. Suddenly, she found herself in front of a terrifying creature and froze in fear. He was returning to the cave with Poison Princess, apologizing to her for giving the monkeys too much attention. He explained that he had become their leader and had responsibilities, but that he understood she was upset. He promised her that the next hunting trip would be for the two of them only. She became very happy and jumped on him, licking him excitedly. And during that moment, a loud scream shattered the silence of the forest. He immediately recognized it as Mara's voice and knew she was in danger. He quickly moved away from Poison Princess and told her to stay where she was. She refused and tried to follow behind him, but her skill was weak, so she crashed into a rock and her health dropped by more than half. He checked on her and reassured her that his feelings had not changed, but that he had to save Mara, then continued running toward the voice. At that same moment, 3 wolves were about to attack Mara, but he appeared at the last second, struck one of them down, and stood in front of her to protect her. The sacred voice told him that these monsters were called Maha wolves, and that they used a third eye to transmit images to the pack and coordinate their attacks with precision. The wolves moved in to attack, but when he checked their stats, he felt that something was not normal. There was a strange aura around them, as if they were stronger than usual. The wolves attacked together, but he responded quickly and unleashed baby breath, burning one of them to ash. The remaining 2 attacked from the side, so he struck them with his fists and finished them off. He tried to approach Maria calmly, but she panicked and stepped back. When she noticed that he was not attacking and remembered that a dragon resembling him had saved her before, she understood that it was him. She gathered her courage and tried to communicate with him, and when she saw that he was protecting her, she began to trust him, and a silent understanding formed between them. The Maya wolves were still surrounding them. He stood in front of Maria and told her to hide behind him, so she quickly climbed onto his back. He prepared himself to open a path and escape the encirclement with her. At the same time, Mariel noticed that Maria was late and became worried. She searched with Gregory around the village and the fields, but they could not find her. She concluded that Maria had entered the forest to search for Da. Despite the danger, she decided to enter the forest to look for her, refused Gregory's help, and told him to stay in case Maria returned. The adventurer teams arrived and gathered to hear Yuno's report about the cave and the plague dragon. The atmosphere grew tense, and some of them questioned whether they were prepared. Melia stepped forward and said that danger was part of their job, and her words calmed the group. He was running while Mara clung to his back. When he saw a small valley, he planned to use it to limit the wolves' movement. He put Mara down in a safe place, then turned to face the wolves. He attacked with the powers of the plague dragon and quickly defeated 3 wolves, but he did not gain any experience points because he had reached the level cap. After the danger was over, he carried Mara and continued running. He was unsure whether he should return her to the village or not, afraid of repeating old mistakes and getting hurt. He was frustrated because he still could not understand her words properly. Suddenly, Mera hugged him tightly and thanked him in a quiet voice. The sacred voice announced that he had fulfilled the requirements for the next evolution, and the options appeared. He rejected the plague dragon path because his appearance and aura would become even more frightening, and Mera might become afraid of him. The second option was the human dark dragon, or a demi-human. At first, the title, Human Dark Dragon or Demi-Human, caught his attention, and he thought it might allow him to become fully human. He felt happy for a moment, but then lowered his expectations because he thought something that convenient had to be impossible. He continued looking at the remaining evolution paths. Most of the options were either evil or weak. The only one that caught his eye was the small arc dragon because of flight and white magic, but the word small worried him, making him fear it would restrict his evolution. He could not decide, so he postponed the choice. Mera tugged on him and said she was thirsty. They reached a waterfall and she drank. He was still thinking about the options and felt that the safest choice was either an evolution focused on rolling speed or flight. He asked Mera what she would choose for him, but she did not understand. She answered with unclear words, but gradually he began to understand some of them. He realized that his language comprehension skill was developing. He heard her introduce herself as Myra. The two of them were happy and they played in the river, splashing water on each other. Over time, his language skill increased, and he became able to understand her words almost completely, though he still did not know how to respond. Mera explained that she had entered the forest to search for her companion Dos. Then she realized that he was the dragon who had saved her before, and hugged him tightly. The warmth of her embrace made him feel a strange and comforting sensation. He apologized to Poison Princess in his heart and chose the demi-human path so he could stay by Mera's side. Mera asked him about his name, and he realized he did not have one. He thought for a long time, but could not choose, so he told her to choose for him. She thought about his courage, strength, and kindness, and named him Olosia. He liked the name very much. The sacred voice asked him to confirm the name Olosia and warned him that it would not change. He agreed, and from that moment on, his name became Olosia. He enjoyed the name for a moment, but then they heard heavy footsteps coming from the forest. He recognized the sound, so he quickly carried Mera and ran to get her to the village, then searched for Da. The wolves chased them and surrounded him and Mera. He noticed that Da was the leader of the pack, and his appearance was pale and almost insane. Mera recognized him and asked what he was doing with these monsters. Olosia opened his status and noticed that Da had no stats showing at all. Maya ran toward him, but a wolf attacked her. Elsia caught up to her, blocked the attack, and saved her. Mera used Fireball and struck Da, causing him to fall. Elsia noticed that Da was holding a lump of dirt as if it were a treasure. They heard heavy footsteps like thunder nearby. Maria wondered who was making that sound. Da flipped over and walked toward the village, while Olosia was confused and could not understand what he wanted from the village. At the same time, Mera discovered that what Da was holding was not ordinary dirt, but a rock dragon egg. She understood that Da's plan was to use it as bait, so the rock dragon would search for it and destroy the village. The footsteps they had heard earlier had come from the rock dragon as it approached. Elsia knew they had to return the egg. He ran toward the village at full speed with Mera on his back, but the Maha wolves chased them. He knew they would not reach safety unless he got rid of the wolves. Mera told him to leave her behind to distract the wolves while he saved the village. He thought for a few seconds and refused, because that would mean her death. He put her down, gathered the last of his energy, and defeated all the Maha wolves. During the fight, Mera received a small scratch. After Olosia made sure she was all right, she told him to hurry and save the village, and he agreed. In the village, Gregory was returning from hunting when he heard a loud roar from the forest. Marielle was still searching for Mera inside the forest. The adventurers were searching for Da's body and had no idea what was happening. Da kept running toward the village, with the rock dragon slowly following behind him. A small blue slime stood in the distance, watching quietly. Olosia was carrying Mera, and when he looked at her, he saw that her injury was minor, and remembered that she could heal herself, but she used the last of her energy to heal Olosia instead of herself. At that moment, he realized just how kind Mera was. At the edge of the forest, Gregory encountered a Maha wolf. He raised his spear and killed it with a single strike. The wolf fell on top of him and knocked him down, and when he got up, he found Olosia in front of him. He recognized the plague dragon and readied his spear to fight. Mera appeared and told him to lower his weapon, explaining that Olosia was not like other dragons. Gregory looked closely and realized that he was the same dragon who had saved Maya before. He lowered his spear and apologized to Alosia. Alosia was happy that he was beginning to understand. Then Mara told Gregory about Da's plan with the rock dragon egg to lure the dragon to the village. Gregory understood the danger and asked Alosia if he could ride with him, and Alosia agreed. Da was walking through the fields, and the villagers were shocked that he was alive. Their shock grew even stronger when Mara and Gregory arrived on the back of the plague dragon. The sound of the rock dragon was getting closer. Gregory quickly came up with a plan. He and Alosia would stop the rock dragon, while Mara would stay behind to help evacuate the village because she was injured. Alosia agreed immediately because he did not want Mara in danger. Mara was uneasy, but she agreed because of her condition. Gregory climbed onto Alosia's back and told him that once this was over, he would officially introduce him to the villagers as a friend, not an enemy. Alosia felt a powerful emotion. This was what he had wanted for so long, to live peacefully with humans, to be accepted by them, and to have an important role. In the village, Da was causing chaos, walking around with his sword and hurting anything in his way, while the villagers could not understand why he had changed. Gregory and Alosia entered, and the people grew even more tense because they could not comprehend why Gregory was riding the dragon. Gregory asked them to calm down and said that Alosia was not an enemy. Suddenly, the ground shook and the rock dragon came extremely close. Gregory shouted for everyone to run, and the people fled, except for one small child hiding behind a box. Da attacked Gregory and struck him, but Alosia intervened and stopped him easily. He could have finished him off, but he chose not to hurt a human and only knocked him unconscious. Gregory saw that and became convinced that Alosia was not like other monsters. Alosia focused on the egg so he could deliver it before the dragon arrived. But Da woke up in a strange way, grabbed a child, and used him as leverage, then climbed to the highest place in an unnatural manner. Alosia was shocked and became certain that Da was not an ordinary human. The rock dragon appeared, and Da raised the egg, threatening it with it. Alosia ran at full speed. Da pushed Yan and knocked him off the tower. Alosia changed direction and dove to catch Yan and save him. At the same moment, Da came down and dropped the egg, causing it to shatter on the ground. The rock dragon saw the broken egg, went berserk, roared, and began stomping the ground in fury. After the dust settled, Alosia had kept Yan safe beneath his body. He looked at the dragon and felt that this was the worst possible scenario and that the blame was on him. If he had finished Da off from the beginning, this would not have happened. He saw Da waving his hands in a strange motion, and the dragon stepped on him, killing him instantly. Alosia put that aside and told Gregory to take Jan and get the people away, while he would stay behind and face the dragon alone. Gregory took Jan and told him that death was not an option. Alosia faced the dragon and saw that it was stronger than anything he had ever faced before. But running away was not an option because he wanted to buy time for the people. He attacked with all his strength and skills, but there was no real effect. The dragon's blows were heavy, and his injuries kept getting worse. The dragon moved closer to finish him off, and suddenly, Gregory returned with a group of adventurers. They entered the fight and managed to injure one of the dragon's eyes. But the dragon smashed through them with overwhelming force and knocked them down one after another until they were exhausted. Alosia remained standing, thinking. The sacred voice said he had reached level 4 and advised him to run. Alosia told it to shut up. He considered evolving into a new form, but he was torn. The system presented Small Bow Dragon with a 4% chance of victory, Jormungand with a 98% chance of a draw but the village would be destroyed, and Rolling Dragon with less than a 1% chance of victory and more than a 99% chance of escape. He rejected them all because he did not want the village to die. He let out a roar of frustration and rage. He did not want any of the paths the system had shown him, and he had no idea what to choose. At the same time, the adventurers in the forest heard a loud sound coming from the direction of the village. They realized there was a great danger, so they quickly returned to see what was happening. At the same time, Mia and Marielle were leading the villagers to a safe place. Mia noticed that some people were still missing, and suddenly, Jean appeared being carried on one of the villagers' backs, badly injured. The villagers explained to Mia that Gregory was still in the village cemetery, fighting the rock monster alone. Marielle immediately decided to go back to help him. Marielle asked Mia to stay and help the injured there because of her healing skills, but Mia refused, saying she had helped everyone and that there were still injured people in the village and the forest who needed her. Marielle thought about it and agreed to take her with her. Olosia stood there, torn over his evolution. He thought about evolving into a small arc dragon so its healing magic could help his allies. The sacred voice told him that this choice had less than a 4% chance of defeating the rock monster and less than a 1% chance of saving the injured. He snapped, attacked the rock monster, and struck it in the head, then ran toward Gregory and found him trapped between two rocks and bleeding. He decided to transform into the small arc dragon to heal Gregory, but Gregory stopped him and told him not to worry. He told him that as a plague dragon, he had no reason to help humans, but reminded him that he still was not using his true power. He explained that plague dragons become stronger when they eat power, and that the best thing was for Olosia to take him in order to strengthen himself. Olosia refused and said that power came from evolving into stronger forms, but then he thought about it and remembered that there had been no plague dragon in his evolution tree, and that one of its conditions was to kill a human, so he understood what Gregory meant. Gregory told him that even if he did that, he would not become a monster, and reminded him that he had helped people and protected the village. He told him that he had a chance to save the village and that he did not want to stop him. After that, Gregory placed himself in a difficult position to help him. Olosia hesitated, but he understood that if he refused, the entire village would be lost. With a difficult decision, he ended the situation and continued forward. The sacred voice rang out and announced that his level had risen and that the plague dragon evolution was now available. Olosia did not hesitate and immediately chose to evolve into a plague dragon. His body began to change and mutate, growing larger, broader, stronger, and more muscular. When the transformation ended, Olosia landed firmly on the ground. Olosia promised himself that he would protect the village no matter what. Empowered by Gregory's sacrifice, he returned to fight the rock monster again. At first they slammed into each other, but he noticed that the rock monster was heavy and far stronger. So he changed his plan and flew around it, confident that he would win that way. At the same time, Mia and Marielle returned to the village and began searching for the battle site. Oros came to them in shock and led them to Gregory's body. He said that Olosia had killed Gregory, then grew enormous and moved the battle east of the village. Mia was shocked and could not believe it, because she knew Olosia was not violent. Marielle said that did not matter now, because there were injured people who needed treatment. Olosia continued fighting and used the rotating storm strike with all his strength, but he was shocked when the monster's health did not decrease. He understood that strength alone was not enough and began searching for a weakness. He rushed toward its head and destroyed the rock monster's last eye. He thought that would be an advantage, but the monster entered a rage and charged toward the village. Olosia stood in front of it with his body and stopped it with all his strength. Marielle was busy healing the injured and discovered that Mia had disappeared, so she worried that she had gone to the monster. Olosia resisted with difficulty and began to weaken. He remembered the dragon scale powder skill that released poison, and when the poison reached the rock monster, it actually affected it. He noticed that the monster's neck was thinner than its body and concluded that it was its weak point. He struck the neck rapidly again and again and activated Neckbreaker, which marked the weak point. He gathered all his strength and delivered one powerful blow. The rock monster fell defeated. Olosia collapsed from exhaustion. The sacred voice announced that he had gained 384 experience points and risen from level 1 to level 19. A little while later, Olosia woke up and found Mia beside him. Mia asked if he was Olosia because she did not recognize him after he had grown so large and changed so much, and she asked if he had evolved again. Before he could answer, a ball of light from Marielle struck him. Marielle shouted at Mia to get away from the monster. Mia defended Olosia and said he was not violent and would never hurt them. Marielle reminded her that he had killed Gregory. Mia refused to believe that he would do something like that without a reason and insisted there had to be an important reason. Suddenly, his dragon scale powder began coming out of his body again, spreading through the air and drifting toward Mia. The moment Olosia saw it, he understood a painful truth. He had become a being whose power was dangerous, and Mia could not come near him anymore. Without saying a word, he gently pushed her away from him. That movement startled Marielle, so she quickly threw another ball of light at him, thinking he was attacking. Olosia was hit, then opened his wings and flew away. Before he left, he said goodbye to Mia without making a sound. Marielle quickly went to Mia and began treating her for the poison that had been in the air. Although the poison was removed, Mia was still in shock and did not understand why Olosia had acted that way. Far from the village, Olosia looked at his reflection in the water. As he saw his new body, He felt strong, his muscles massive, and he remembered that he could now defeat stronger monsters. As he walked, he found a strange flower beside him. The sacred voice returned again and told him that it was called the Olosia flower, a rare plant that only appeared in places where monsters were, and that it symbolized courage. Those words made him remember the moment Mia had named him Olosia because she saw him as brave and heroic. That memory hurt him deeply, because after killing a human, he felt that he no longer deserved the title of hero. But the sacred voice told him that he could no longer change his name now. That feeling drove him to collapse and fall to the ground, and he began asking himself why he had been brought into this world in the first place, and what his purpose even was. Suddenly, he heard a strange sound coming from the bushes, but he did not even look in its direction, feeling as though nothing mattered to him anymore. At the same time, a group of adventurers found the corpse of the rock monster, and they were stunned, wondering who could have possibly defeated it. They also began worrying about the villagers. After that, they sensed humans nearby and reached a camp where the survivors were gathered. There, Mia and Marielle were treating the injured. The adventurers asked Marielle what had happened, and she explained that the rock monster had fought the plague dragon, that the monster had lost, and that the dragon had flown into the forest after the battle. After that, they decided to enter the forest to search for the missing, and Mia offered to go with them because she knew the area. At the same time, Olosia woke up and found Poison Princess sleeping on top of him. He apologized to her for running away and leaving her before, and told her that he would not leave her again, and she forgave him naturally. But Olosia knew that the matter was not simple, because he had become a dragon that everyone feared. He had also killed Gregory, which meant he could no longer return to living among humans. At the same time, he also realized that he could not stay with Poison Princess or the monkeys either, because his dragon scale powder might harm them. Because of that, he decided that he had to leave the forest completely. But before he left, there was one thing he wanted to understand. He wanted to know how Da had managed to transform into that form. Olosia felt a heavy responsibility, and he thought that his duty was to ensure humans could live in peace. Based on that, at that moment, his psychic ability activated, and he sensed a nearby danger. He lowered his gaze and found the same slime he had tried to inspect before but could not. He noticed that the slime had an extremely strange status, higher than normal, and that only happened with very powerful monsters. Driven by curiosity, he decided to follow it, and even though he had become stronger, he could now see the slime's abilities more clearly. What shocked him was that its skills were unnatural, resembling human skills, and also resembling the skills of the Maha wolves. That made no sense for a slime. Olosia began connecting the events together. He remembered how strange Da had been while walking with the Maha wolves. He began to suspect that this slime might be stealing skills and controlling other creatures. He also remembered the moment when a slime came out of Da's mouth and helped him climb the water tower, which confirmed his suspicion even more. So the slime had most likely played a role in everything that happened, and it might even have been the mastermind. Olosia decided he could not leave such a dangerous creature alive. He descended to attack it in order to protect his allies. But before the blow could land, the slime released orange smoke that blocked his vision. When the smoke disappeared, Olosia found two children standing in front of him, trembling in fear. That left him confused, because they had not been there a moment ago. Suddenly, he was attacked by a slime sting coming from the hand of one of the children. After that, the two children disappeared and merged into a single terrifying-looking slime creature. The slime spoke and said that it remembered Olosia from before he became a plague dragon. Olosia was surprised and tried to understand what it was. Poison Princess suddenly attacked and struck the slime, but the creature regenerated instantly as if nothing had happened. Olosia admitted that this regeneration was terrifying and assumed that the slime had stolen healing and regeneration skills from other monsters. The slime spoke again and said there was no need to fight and that each of them should simply leave the other alone. Olosia responded angrily, but the slime did not understand him and thought he was asking about humans. It reshaped itself into the two children again and said that they had tasted good, but their skills had not been very useful. At first, Olosia did not understand, but then the slime began displaying different human forms, and that was when Olosia realized these were people it had killed in order to take their skills. In the end, the slime displayed a large image of Da's head and explained that after absorbing him, it was able to control him and make him move events forward, provoking the rock monster into attacking the village. Olosia became furious and shouted at the slime, telling it that he would make it pay for everything it had done. The slime noticed his reaction and thought that Alosia might also have an interest in humans, or perhaps even wanted to eat them like other monsters. But it confirmed that it had no interest in humans at all. Its only goal was to gather more and more skills, and because of that, it intended to go to the next village and kill more people to take their abilities. That made Alosia even angrier, and he declared that he would not rest until he erased this slime completely. At the same time, Mia and the group of adventurers were still inside the forest, searching for the missing people. And despite her focus, Mia could not stop thinking about Alosia and whether he was alright. On the battlefield, Alosia began his attack. He used his burning breath skill to burn the slime to ash, then grabbed it and shot rapidly upward into the sky with it. After that, he used the meteorite skill to force the slime downward and smash it into the ground, creating a massive impact that filled the area with smoke. But when the smoke disappeared, Alosia was shocked to find that the slime was still alive. What surprised him even more was that instead of the slime reappearing, a creature named Tarantug emerged in its place. At the same time, the adventurers managed to find 3 of the missing villagers and began escorting them back to a safe place. As they walked, Marielle called out to Maria and told her that seeing her like this gave her some relief. She admitted that she had been worried Maya might return and enter the forest again, especially since she still clearly trusted Alosia. Maria answered honestly and said she did not know what she was supposed to feel right now. She was deeply convinced that what happened had been a misunderstanding, because the Alosia she knew would never have become that violent without a reason. Marielle told her to face reality. She reminded her that Alosia had killed Gregory and had even tried to attack her herself. Even so, Maria admitted that she still felt he must have had a reason for everything he did. That was why she wanted to meet him one last time and hear the truth directly from him. Yuno stepped in and warned that humans and creatures like that could not live together. But Melia spoke and told Marielle to let Maria do what she wanted. She knew Maria would search for Alosia no matter what, so it would be better if they went with her. Melia suggested that she and Yuno accompany Maria so they could keep the situation under control. She also said that Marielle would probably want to follow the plague dragon's movements, so that would help them too. And she promised that she would protect Maya with her life. After thinking it over, Marielle agreed, but she warned Maya that she had to remain in control of herself at all times. In the same battle, Alosia quickly discovered that Tarantug was not an ordinary monster. It was actually the same slime, but transformed into a completely different form. The slime was annoyed that Alosia was able to injure it, and decided to end the fight quickly. It attacked him with flame chains, overflowing with confidence, but Alosia surprised it, dodging and blocking every attack. After that, he leaped onto the spider-like body, attacked the slime's heart directly, and sliced through its core body. The slime begged for mercy, but Alosia did not even think about stopping. He continued his assault and cut it apart until it became scattered pieces. When he saw it like that, Alosia thought the battle was over, but suddenly the slime in front of him began rebuilding itself. It reassembled its body, smiled mockingly at Alosia, and told him that he had thought it was over, but he would not win, because its core body existed in every one of its forms. Alosia grew furious and attacked again, but just like before, the slime recovered easily. The slime grew tired of the fight and decided to end it. It created a large scythe and prepared to strike Alosia. At that moment, Poison Princess attacked from behind and touched it lightly before she was struck and thrown away. The slime had completely forgotten about her. It decided to finish her first. But suddenly, it felt that something was wrong. Its body began reacting, and it realized that its right hand had been poisoned. Poison Princess had managed to inject the poison into it before she was hit. Poison Princess tried to escape, but the slime used a spell that slowed her movement. Then it grabbed her and lifted her into the air. Alosia saw that and immediately ran to save her, but before he could reach her, the slime threw out more smoke that blocked his vision. When the smoke cleared, Alosia found Poison Princess trapped inside a crystal-like sphere, completely sealed and unable to move. At the same time, while Melia was leading Marielle and Maya toward Alosia, she asked Marielle for the details of what had happened with the plague dragon. Marielle said that things had gotten worse after the plague dragon appeared and that there had been many victims, including Gregory. But Maya objected and said that she did not know why, but she felt he must have had a good reason for everything he had done. After that, Melia spoke and said that she and Yuno had also encountered a plague dragon before while searching inside a cave, and when they found it, it was in human form. Marielle asked Melia why she had not said that earlier, and Melia replied that she had not thought it was connected closely enough to what was happening. She had thought that she and Yuna would not have any chance against the dragon alone, so she tried to contact the rest of their team so they could come help, but she had taken far too long. She lowered her head in apology to Muriel, knowing that this had happened at the very moment when they needed her more than ever. Muriel told her not to worry because it would have been impossible for her to know or expect everything that had happened. And although she still had her head lowered, Melia said that all the terrifying stories told about the plague dragon were based on ancient legends with no reliable source. Muriel hoped she was not hinting at what she understood, but Melia did not continue that point and told them that they had to keep moving. At the same time, Elozia stood confused in front of the crystal sphere before him. He used appraisal and discovered that the sphere was actually a spell that slowly caused damage and drained Poison Princess's health and energy. Elozia grew furious when he saw that and began striking it with all his strength, but nothing worked. After that, he concluded that the slime would not be able to attack him in its current form, so he decided to use his strongest attack and see what happened. He stepped back and unleashed the Dragonfire attack, shattering the sphere and freeing Poison Princess. She fell into his hand and he made sure she was alright. He tells her that she did an incredible job when she attacked the slime with her poison, and he's convinced that the slime won't last much longer after this. But suddenly, he's shocked to find the slime standing behind him with an infuriating grin. Elozia is confused. He can't understand how the slime survived Princess Poison's venom, but when he checks its status, he discovers the truth. The slime stole Princess Poison's poison neutralization skill and used it to cure itself. The slime continues mocking Elozia, and after a while, it even suggests that Elozia join him, because in the end, they're both traitorous monsters alike. But Elozia rejects the offer completely and tells him that it will only happen over his dead body. Elozia pauses for a moment to think, and he begins noticing that the slime constantly uses terms like stats and skills. Moreover, in order to steal Princess Poison's poison neutralization skill, it had to have seen her stats directly. That makes Elozia suspect that the slime sees the world the same way he does. Suddenly, the slime confirms it. It tells him that it truly sees the same world and can view all stats and skills. It also reveals that it possesses the same sacred voice as Elozia, and that it follows that voice to become stronger no matter the cost. Its goal is to reach the very top. Elozia takes a moment to think about those words. The slime assumes Elozia is finished fighting and decides to head toward the village, but Elozia mutters that he won't allow it, and uses his fire breath to create a ring of flames that traps both of them inside. The slime is startled, because Elozia's presence suddenly feels far more dangerous than before. At the same time, Melia abruptly stops when she catches the faint smell of smoke. Maria notices something is wrong as well. She looks toward the forest and sees a nearby section engulfed in flames. She immediately realizes that this is where Elozia is fighting, so she and Melia rush toward it without hesitation, while Marielle follows after them. The slime is surprised by Elozia's determination, but decides that he absolutely has to kill him. The battle continues, and the slime tells Elozia that the sacred voice he hears is the very foundation of the world itself. It establishes the rules, and all they have to do is follow it and become stronger, regardless of the price. But Elozia responds that he isn't interested in power for power's sake. He would rather fight for the things he truly believes in. After that, the slime summons several Maha wolves to fight alongside him, and Elozia understands exactly what he's doing. He's using them to lure him into making a mistake and exposing himself. Elozia already knows that neither he nor the slime possesses an attack powerful enough to end this battle outright, so he assumes the slime is preparing something that will give it the advantage. Suddenly, he notices the slime stretching its hand toward one of the Maha wolves, and he assumes it's trying to steal the wolf's skill. But when he uses his appraisal skill, he discovers that the slime is actually storing energy. He decides to stop it immediately and charges forward, slaughtering all 3 Maha wolves. But then he's shocked to discover a 4th one. He quickly appraises it and confirms that it really is a Maha wolf, which means that one of the wolves he killed earlier had actually been the slime in disguise. His instincts prove correct, because the slime suddenly reveals itself and transforms into a mass covered in razor-sharp spikes that pierce Elozia's body and paralyze him. The slime laughs and mocks him, telling him that it's going to devour him completely. It begins consuming him slowly, and Elozia can't move at all. For that moment, he's forced to surrender himself to helplessness. But suddenly, an idea strikes him. Gathering the last of his strength, he shoots upward into the sky. Since the slime is attached to him, it's dragged along as well. The slime assumes it's merely a desperate attempt and keeps laughing, saying that it's going to enjoy taking every single one of Elucia's skills. Marielle and the others look up and watch Elucia climb higher and higher into the heavens, unable to understand what's happening. After reaching an incredible height, Elucia suddenly stops in midair. He looks at Mara one last time. He takes a deep breath. Princess Poison lets out a quiet breath of her own. Then he begins to fall. Elucia plummets downward at terrifying speed, while the slime still doesn't understand what's going on. Elucia tells him that not even he will survive a nutcracker strike delivered from this height. The slime realizes it's truly in danger and starts begging for its life, but Elucia isn't in the mood for mercy today. He grips the slime even tighter as they continue falling. Elucia knows that he himself won't survive the impact either, but he believes it's a price worth paying if it means destroying the slime once and for all. The slime continues pleading as they descend, but Elucia never lets go, and in that moment, the slime begins remembering that all it had ever wanted was to follow the sacred voice and grow stronger. A short while later, the two crash into the ground with catastrophic force. A massive explosion erupts from the impact. Maria and the others arrive at the site of the explosion, and Mara collapses in tears when she sees Elucia's body lying on the ground. Princess Poison arrives as well and is left stunned as she stares at him in that condition. Soon after, a tremendous wave of water sweeps in and carries Elucia's body away with the current, causing Maria to cry even harder as she calls out to him. But Marielle slaps her hard across the face and tells her to pull herself together. He was just a dragon. Afterward, they return to the village and Milia explains everything that happened to Yuno. But Maria remains seated on the ground, devastated and grieving his death. At the same time, Marielle feels that after everything that's happened, Maria will probably leave the village. She's always loved adventure and seeing the world, and losing Elucia may finally become the reason that drives her to leave. Back in the cave, Princess Poison takes charge and declares that they will stand guard until he returns. After some time passes, he suddenly awakens in a dark place. He tries to look around him, and little by little, light begins to appear. He wonders if he has been reborn once again. But when he finally emerges, he discovers himself standing on a barren stretch of sand, while an endless expanse of water surrounds him from every direction. He stands there in confusion. How did he get here? And what will he do next? And with that, dear viewers, our story comes to an end. We truly hope you enjoyed it and had fun watching. If you'd like to see a second season, let me know in the comments. And before you close the video, don't forget to hit the like button to support us, subscribe to follow more episodes, and turn on notifications so you never miss any new anime on the channel. Share your thoughts with us in the comments, and we'll see you again in future episodes. Goodbye.